Hey everybody, Jimmy Smith, this time reacting to some breaking news. Jon Jones in trouble again! For people who aren't following things or don't know what's happening, UFC champ Jon Jones accused of assault, quote, terrified drug test sample collector after threatening her. Apparently, a worker for the Drug-Free Sport International, DFSI, a worker doing a recent sample collection, came to his home in Albuquerque, New Mexico to get a sample. According to the report filed with the Albuquerque Police Department, it took place March 30th. The worker who filed the complaint said Jones was cooperative at first, but eventually became verbally combative after he struggled to provide a urine sample and she suggested a blood sample instead. Jones then threatened to sue, took her phone, and video recorded the workers. According to the Albuquerque Police Department, the responding officer viewed the video. The worker added she believed Jones was intoxicated as he smelled like alcohol. The worker alleges Jones then put her phone back in his pocket and, quote, got into her face and said, quote, why you effing people come so early? Do you know what happens to people who come to my house? They end up dead. According to the Albuquerque Police Department police report, the worker was terrified, afraid, felt her heart pounding, etc., as most people would be, with Jon Jones, an apparently intoxicated Jon Jones, in her face, getting upset. Very interesting here. Not what's in the report itself, although that is interesting. According to the article, eventually Jones provided a urine sample. As he was doing so, the worker grabbed her phone back. After she left, the worker filed an internal report and notified her supervisor at DFSI, whom she said later attempted to talk her out of reporting the incident to police until she spoke to UFC representatives. That's not good. Meaning, to say, well, you could file a police report, but you should talk to the UFC first. You never want to get involved in anything like that, right? Not the UFC necessarily. They weren't contacted, right? But the idea of his supervisor going, don't go to the police, first go to the UFC, that is a gigantic conflict of interest of, hey, man, I reported I was threatened. Whether you reported it or not, it shouldn't depend on how the UFC feels about it. Now, fortunately, that didn't happen, so the UFC didn't get brought into it, because it would be a huge problem if the UFC went, hey, don't report this, and that got out. That would be huge. That didn't happen, thankfully. The worker contacted police Friday and indicated she wanted to pursue charges. The worker said her coworker did not want to file a police report because he was, quote, afraid of the repercussions of going after Jon Jones. The statement from Jon Jones about this, to me, is very, very telling. It's on his official Instagram. I want to address reports about me allegedly threatening a drug tester's life and taking a phone. I want to clarify that there is a video showing both drug testers leaving my home after the testing session where we exchanged high fives and a hug. Although I was frustrated with the unprofessionalism and used profanity out of frustration, it ended friendly and amicably. Nothing threatening at all. I was actually celebrating a friend's birthday party at my home, and I believe it's perfectly normal to celebrate in the comfort of my own house. I must say, this particular tester behaved quite unprofessionally and even breached standard protocol along with HIPAA laws. Throughout my 20 years of being subjected to drug tests, I have never encountered such an incident with a DCO officer before. He's not saying, I don't know what happened. He's not saying, I don't know what she's talking about at all. He's acknowledging there was some problem. He's saying, I didn't threaten them. And he said it ended amicably. In a legal sense, that wouldn't hold up, meaning we high-fived at the end. She would say, yeah, I high-fived him. I was terrified. Yeah, I walked out going, yeah, everything's great. Big hug. I don't want to get killed, right? So the idea that it ended well, remember, you're not showing a video of what actually happened. You're showing a video of the aftermath. Any competent prosecuting attorney, assuming it went there, would go, yeah, she high-fived him and hugged him. She was scared for her life, want to get the hell out of there. So the high five and the hug at the end isn't going to necessarily exonerate him. I don't care how frightened, if you did threaten her, they're still going to walk out and act like everything's cool because you want to get to your car and get out of there. And any competent prosecutor is going to say that. So the video he has, which shows them high-fiving and hugging or whatever, which is on his Instagram, I didn't threaten them because it ended so well. Well, they're going to pretend it ends well because if it ended so well, they wouldn't be filing charges. They're going to pretend it ends well because they're terrified. If, what actually went down. That doesn't necessarily exonerate him. The second part of, I was celebrating in a friend's home. So he's probably was intoxicated to some degree. We don't know, to what degree, obviously. And also he says they were unprofessional. It doesn't point out what they did that was unprofessional. He doesn't say they did this, they did that. He just said they acted unprofessionally and made me mad, so I responded angrily, whatever. He doesn't provide any specifics about what they did. So where does this leave us right now? Once again, everybody, and I say this all the time whenever there's a story like this, everybody has a right to due process. Everybody has a right to tell their side of the story. Everybody has a right to their day in court, all of these things. Remember, he provided the sample. So he didn't just run off and not provide a sample. So it doesn't interfere with the fight happening, provided the sample's clean, of course. Might have to pay a little fine, might have to apologize to somebody. It's just an indication, again, that Jon Jones just doesn't make the best decisions, especially when he's loaded. He just is, for lack of a better term, kind of an angry drunk. Like, he just doesn't make good decisions. I mean, very few people make good decisions while drunk. The idea that Jon Jones tends to be hostile and tends to be confrontational and tends to just not know when to just shut up and pee in the cup, right? The disheartening thing about this is not the worst thing Jon Jones has ever been accused of. It's the idea that all of these things that he's been accused of haven't made him think twice about things, right? That, all right, I'm just not going to yell at this person simply because I tend to get in trouble when this stuff happens. It's not that, where there's smoke, there's fire all the time. But after the third or fourth fire, okay, this happens quite a bit. To varying degrees. I'm not comparing, obviously the domestic violence thing he had going in Vegas, which was absolutely reprehensible, to this. I mean, they're not quite the same, but it's this. You just seem like you get a couple drinks, you get confrontational, and you get upset, and you get in people's faces, and bad things happen. And he hasn't learned that maybe I shouldn't do that. He hasn't gotten clean. He hasn't stayed clean. I'm not moralizing at all. If somebody drinks or somebody gets high, whatever you want to do, that's fine. But the idea that I know this leads to confrontational behavior that can get me in trouble. Some people can have a few drinks, everything's fine. Other people either A, can't stop drinking, or B, they just always go down a rabbit hole of bad decisions. We don't know what happened with this exactly, but it sounds like other Jon Jones stuff. That he has a couple drinks and just they came at the wrong time. The people taking the test came and got Jon Jones while he was partying, and he was in a pissed off mood, regardless of what they did. So we'll get more details. We'll find out what's going on. I don't think it's going to affect the fight, provided the sample's clean. It's just another instance of Jon Jones probably making a bad decision at a bad time. As more evidence comes out, obviously, we'll find out what's going on. But that is how it stands now. Still think we see Jon Jones fight Stipe at some point soon, but guy's got to learn that when he drinks, he does bad things. We'll see if he learns that at some point.